how this game is really being played. So I think it's going to be just a massive opening of consciousness where people are going to see both sides of the coin, and then they're going to start to go into super connection. And then the Pleiadians said, remember, they said at the end of the Mayan calendar is when all nine dimensions would open. So then it would look to me like when the universal underworld time acceleration starts in February, then all of a sudden all 9 dimensions are going to open up. Blammo. Now, what would that be like? Well, what happens is, remember divine consciousness in the 8th dimension?
Yeah.
Which we can call God if we want to.
Right.
That's okay. And then remember geometry in the 6th dimension, the world of forms and really high ideals. Well, higher consciousness and getting in touch with the divine mind and all that kind of stuff exists in those dimensions, and it's not in the 4th dimension. Now, the 4th dimension is where all the world religions are. So what happens for people, and still is happening at this current moment, remember I said early on in the program that the upper 5 dimensions come through the 4th dimension, because the 4th dimension for us is the dimension of intuition and feeling. And so I think what's going to happen during the universal underworld is all of a sudden, instead of getting your divine consciousness connection through the 4th dimension and then having it turn into one of the world religions, all of a sudden it becomes direct. And this was one of the teachings of the Gnostics. The religion that got dumped 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago was Gnosticism, which was a form of Christianity. And Gnosticism is a very simple thing. It just says you can have a direct connection if you want it, and you don't have to go through any religion or any priest.
Right.
So the idea here would be that those 9 dimensions are going to blast open the minute the universal underworld is going to come, and it's going to like really just straighten out the way people tune in to all of these realities, is the way I'd put it.
So in some way also, that to me that means that currently there is a kind of a bottleneck or something is withholding this from already happening. And what is that force? Is it just a cosmic alignment? Is it physical? Is it non-physical? Is it out there? Is it in us? What is it?
Well, this is where I am so grateful to Carl Kalaman. And he was one of the few male scientists that I connected with who was willing to actually talk to me. Carl Kalaman is the one who has the answer to your question. And and also the only way you can answer that question, in other words, like what is it that's holding us in a certain field right now?
Yeah.
I think is what you're asking, which is me, and we're not going to the other level I talked about. Well, the way to figure it out is to study time acceleration. And the way you do that is really simple, is you go back through the previous underworlds to see what was going on at this moment in time. Now we're in the middle of the night 6 of the galactic underworld. And the midpoint of night 6 was right around May 6th, so we've just gotten past the halfway point of night 6. So what you do is you just go back to the midpoint of night 6 of the planetary and national, and in this case, regional underworld. That's the 100,000-year underworld. And in a moment, you'll see what I mean, because the regional underworld has got the big answer for your question. So if we go back in the planetary underworld, it's 1982-83, and I'm not going to waste any time on it. There's not much going on there. If we go back to the midpoint of the national underworld, night 6, we get 1425 AD, and we're right smack dab in the middle of the Inquisition.
Right.
And right smack dab in the middle of the Catholic Church taking rigid control of the mentality of Western consciousness, and anybody who doesn't agree gets burned at the stake, and so everybody behaves. And so it's very important to understand that we're resonating deeply with inquisitional consciousness right now. Ratzinger, I won't even call this Pope Benedict because it's an insult to the name. His name is Ratzinger. And Ratzinger ran the Inquisition in the church for 20 years before he became Pope. So when I saw Ratzinger getting caught, and he is getting caught, you can see that resonation with the Inquisition. But the really big resonation that we're dealing with now is the regional. And in order to put that into context, what I'm actually saying is since 1999, which is the beginning of the galactic underworld, we've been processing the planetary industrial themes, and we've been processing the national underworld civilization theocratic consciousness. And we've been processing it so much that we seem to be now penetrating the regional mind. And this is a big deal because the regional mind represents Paleolithic consciousness, it represents Neanderthal consciousness, it represents the consciousness of Eden, it represents a very, very what's the right word for it? It's a time of oneness on the planet because until the national underworld started, we were much more unified with the planetary field.
The bicameral mind kind of idea a little bit.
Pardon?
Maybe the bicameral mind idea, if you heard about that, Julian Jaynes, etc.
That's actually true. I love the bicameral mind because he tried to make it look like it was a bad thing, and if you read the book right, it's a great thing, because that is an access to the regional mind. So then we look at night 6 of the regional, which is 13,800 BC to 5,900 BC in terms of the dating. The midpoint of the regional night 6, which is what we're resonating with right now, is 10,000 to 9,500 BC. And you alluded to catastrophobia at the beginning of this program. You're right. I wrote a whole book called Catastrophobia. And the theme of catastrophobia is that a huge cataclysm happened on our planet between about 9,500 BC, and actually it's back to about 14,000 BC. The regional underworld cataclysm started exactly when night 6 came in.
So to clarify that idea, what you're saying is that this time we're in right now is resonating with these previous qualities of time, so to speak, right?
Right, and the people who are noticing it the most are people in Europe who are on the wrong side of the volcano in Iceland. In other words, the Earth, and also another issue would be that since January, it's really an obscenity that the scientists are not being honest about the earthquake activity on this planet. The earthquake and volcanic activity has been increasing extremely rapidly during this period, and I'm sure you agree. I don't even have to list all the earthquakes that we've had since January 15th or 13th when Haiti blew off. So the planet is processing these regional cataclysms. The theme of catastrophobia is that the planet literally almost was destroyed during this period. And now we are living on this planet as a recovering species. And we're resonating, and the planet is resonating with those cataclysms in order for us to resolve fear complexes. In other words, the theme of catastrophobia is that we are a mass traumatized species.
Yes, exactly.
And then in my case, coming from a Cherokee Celtic background, I like to use my Celtic side too because I'm a storyteller. And the storytellers believe that when people lose their stories, they lose their minds. And so the scientific story of our time is actually for people to recover the information about these cataclysms during the regional underworld.
That's really interesting.
That's what we're resonating with. So you can see why it's really interesting how we're on the verge of some of these beautiful breakthroughs that I've been describing, 9-dimensional breakthrough. And we can, I know you can feel that we're on the verge of it. Yet what's wrong with us?
Right.
And what we're doing is we're working out major psychological fear blocks that have to be transmuted on this planet.
I see. And also, does this to you mean that we will live through these things again by, so to speak, digging into the past and understand that they actually occurred? Or do you think that catastrophe is something that is cyclical and will come back now and hit us again in some way? Or is it getting slightly better and better all the time, so we won't have such a huge catastrophe, but as you say, we will have these minor things happening like volcanoes, earthquakes, etc.?
Well, catastrophobia was working with the idea that the planetary structure was actually altered during the final cataclysmic point. What happened was fragments from the Vela supernova came into our solar system and just wreaked havoc all over the solar system. This is the reason why a lot of the planets have weird